Well, Josh Gad, the comedian's already airing on FX here this spring and summer. Now, do I have the Josh Gad or the TV version of Josh Gad?
This is the Josh Gad. I'm not as egocentric as my accomplice on FX. I am, I think, a lot less neurotic and a little bit more accountable and responsible. I have a family who's in the other room that counts on me, and fake Josh Gad does not. So those are the things that distinguish this Josh Gad from the other one.
I remember years ago when Seinfeld, I guess, really became a hit, maybe the third or fourth season, Jerry Seinfeld would say in interviews that he had to distinguish himself from, he called himself TV Jerry or real Jerry, because people would get them confused.
It's true. It's never more problematic or present than when I'm called upon to say something absolutely horrible to my co-star, also named by his real name, Billy Crystal. And you sort of have to distinguish it and pull him aside and go, I'm about to say some really awful things to fake Billy Crystal as fake Josh Gad, but I want real Billy Crystal to hear from real Josh Gad that I don't truly feel that way. And it's always, you know, the second we both signed on to this project, we made an agreement that we were going to be pot committed, warts and all. And I think it's fair to say we've done that. And sometimes it's immensely uncomfortable, but ultimately I think it's really helping distinguish the show and make it dynamic and create the tension that's necessary for these two guys who are vastly different when it comes to their approaches to comedy by virtue of the fact that they come from two completely different generations.
When you signed on, did you tell the producers or writers or other people, hey, this part of my life is off limits?
Quite the contrary. I told them to not hold back and to take the punches that they felt the characters warranted in order to tell the best version of the story. And if we ever needed to pull back or edit, we would. But I don't recall a situation where I actually had to pull that card. I would, in many cases, I told them to go further with things like making fun of 1600 Penn or making fun of any of my previous failures. I wanted to embrace them and I wanted to own them because I feel like it's, you know, it's important that we're in on the joke as well.
Yeah, both of you. I've seen the first 9 out of the 13 for this first season, and both of you over the course, even of those 9, I think have referred to just about every project both of you have been in.
Yes, and then some, and it all comes from a kernel of truth. You know, there's an episode that just aired, which was Billy and I both getting nominated in the same category for an award ceremony, and that happened to us where both nominated, and we said, we've got to make the most of this. We have to, forgive me, I have a circus behind me. You guys know I'm recording this right now. Can you go in the other room? Thank you. This is my life. This is the circus that is my life. Random women coming in and joining the party at any given moment. You know, things like that, moments like that, we definitely embraced and said, let's own that and make the most of that, and then, you know, take it on an unexpected adventure.
Well, I was going to bring this up a little later, but let's do it now because I think it's a nice segue. For the Emmys, FX is putting Billy as a lead on the show, and you're in supporting. Tell us about the conversation there, and because it's basically the two of you on this show. Did you mind going supporting and him lead?
It was actually my idea. I was very cognizant of the fact that Billy Crystal is the beating heart of this series, and I wanted that to be honored, and I was actually very much in line with FX's strategy as well, which was, I do feel like I support Billy, and I feel like at least the emotional arc of this season is in many ways about his journey and his growth, and I'm in support of that growth. And as much as it is a two-hander, and it is, like say Book of Mormon, where we're both on these, trajectories at the same time. And as there's an episode called Billy's Birthday that I think is so brilliantly done that illustrates this very idea that Billy is going through this emotional journey that's at the center and at the core of what season 1 is about. So for me, it was a no-brainer. It was a no-brainer. I also didn't want a very bitter Billy Crystal if I were nominated against him.
I don't blame you. All through the years, that you just never know on these strategies. Sometimes it's good to be in the same category with somebody. It showcases both of you. Sometimes it cancels out the votes. You just never know on these kinds of things.
Yeah. With me, it was about deference and respect for the elder statesman and somebody who I'm very fond of, and I felt like he is in my is the lead.
Well, just remind him, he won't remember. He'll have a senior moment. Just next year, tell him, hey, don't you recall this was our deal? You would go lead the first year, I'll go lead the second year.
That's exactly right.
What I love about this category too is really the first time I saw you was on the Fox show Back to You with a bunch of great people, but one of them was Ty Burrell, who keeps winning this category. So if you get into supporting, that's the guy you got to take down here.
I'm going after Ty all the way. Ty and I are actually very close still, and I'm actually, when I'm done with this, I'm going to write him an email saying, I'm coming for you, Burrell. I'm coming for you.
Well, you've had several good episodes this year, and I don't know if you've thought about, which one you would submit if you get nominated, but I hope it's Go for Gad. I think that was your best showcase this year.
Oh, well, thank you so much. Yeah,
I think that's the next one. I think that's the next one airing next Thursday.
I think so. It's either Go for Gad or it's the episode with Mel Brooks, Bobby Lopez.
That's right. I can't remember. That's like 4-5 or 5-4, but it's coming up very soon.
No, look, here's the thing is I tend not to approach anything from a position of earning hardware. So for me, I'm much more excited by the fact that you're relating to the series and you're engaging in it, and even having this conversation is an honor. And it's funny because when I first got started with Back to You, there was no way it was basically the critics were the last word when it came to your series. And so at the start of the season, you would get this barrage of criticisms, both good and bad, and that would be the final sentiment when it came to the entirety of your series, right? And now that social media is what it is, it's exciting to have the journey where you can track how audiences are embracing it and how they're discovering it. And week to week, I'm seeing this enormous growth in terms of conversation and engagement that reached a peak last night with the red carpet episode, where Billy and I get stoned and we're both nominated in the same category, and we wind up going to the supermarket and really getting to know each other for the first time. And that's what's so exciting to me, is being able to engage with the fans and being able to see the work that we've done start to really affect, people all over the map, and people experiencing these episodes that we've now seen 100 times for the first time, and engage in conversation about them.
Well, I'm glad you talked about the growth, because that was the only thing that was a negative for me when I saw some critics, watch the first one or first two and just say, they didn't like it or whatever, because I knew that as the season went along, I felt like you and Billy gelled more and more, as the characters would in real life. You're two guys that didn't necessarily want to be on this show together. So I think that the journey that the two of you are taking over the course of the season has a natural progression where you start gelling together more.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. I think that there's a level of impatience and rightfully so. I mean, we're in the golden age of television, and there's a lot of material out there vying for attention. And sometimes it's easier to watch one or two episodes and say, I don't have time to see how this turns out. And, I felt, unfairly or not, that the main criticism, when it came to criticism, and we got some extraordinary raves from people who did get what we were going for, but it's this sort of it's this easy way of saying that it's inside baseball and that the show, in essence, is just another iteration of the Larry Sanders Show or episodes or something like that. And what you get, hopefully, over the course of the season, that it's actually a lot more than that. That it's actually about this generational disconnect, this gap that exists between two people who desperately want the same thing, but approach it by vastly different means to that end. And that, to me, is what excited me about the project. The sort of show within the show aspect is secondary to all that. And I think the creative team does a brilliant job and a beautiful job, and as you've probably been able to see in the 9 episodes that you've watched, of taking us on that journey and showing us this arc that occurs as these two guys are forced more intimately into each other's lives and forced to understand what makes the other tick, whether it's something as simple as Laurel and Hardy, or whether it's something as, as cliche as vulgarity. There are these overlapping things that allow the two of them to understand each other, and at the same time that keep the two of them at odds.
Well, one of those you're talking about coming up either this week or the next week has Mel Brooks, has the Lopez's, who you know very well from Frozen. I love the musical number that they write for you, but they're both very funny in the show themselves.
Mel Brooks give that man his guest star Emmy right now. He is so brilliant and brings such an infusion of genius into the episode. And Bobby and Kristen, they don't know how to write an unforgettable song. And this is no exception. I mean, the song that they wrote for us at the last minute was so extraordinarily funny and brilliant. And Billy and I were both honored to be the recipients of that gift. That is a Bobby and Kristen song. And yeah, we're really excited, again, going down the meta rabbit hole that is all of trying to get the network to be a little bit less concerned over the direction that the series is taking. And Mel Brooks is the guest star that we reach out to, and without ruining any of the surprises, things don't quite go as planned. But it's such a treat to be able to work with another living legend who I grew up admiring the hell out of.
Yeah, you may or may not be aware, but he's won more guest acting Emmys than anybody in history. So this will just add to his haul.
I'm sure he has. He's shown us. He's shown us many of his trophies. He's not shy about showing them.
No, and in fact, after I watched everything, I wasn't sure if I should reveal who it was, so I just said, hey, there's an episode coming up with 2 EGOT winners, being Mel and being Robert Lopez. I said, I won't tell you their names, and then people started guessing, and I wouldn't say anything. They figured it was probably Mel because of Billy.
The original title that I pitched for that episode was Can't Spell EGOT Without Ego. But the concern was that it would go over too many.
Well, our inside joke on the site, we have that list of the 12 EGOT winners, but we also have the list of people that are like one short, and they always talk about Barbara Streisand having the ego because she doesn't have the T. So you're one of the few people that would get that joke. I hope the FX will submit that song. Maybe the Lopez duo there could win an Emmy for that song.
I'm certain they will. I'm certain they will. And who knows? Maybe Billy and I will sing it if if the opportunity arises. I think we'd love any opportunity to sing for a live audience.
Well, now that you've had a few months of working with Billy, what did you find out about him that you didn't know before?
Oh, he's a dirty bird. I mean, like, that's the funny thing is you sort of have an expectation of Billy Crystal being the modern-day Bob Hope. But even Bob Hope, I'm sure, had like a dark, funny side, and so does Billy. But the thing that I think I'm most impressed by is here's a guy who has done it all. He's generated more goodwill than most celebrities will ever have in a quarter of that span of the time that he's been able to generate that goodwill. And he's sort of somebody that you think you know everything about when it comes to what he does and what his thing is. And here he comes with this, as far as I'm concerned, revelatory surprise with this series where he shows a much darker side, a much edgier side, a much less approachable side than most people are familiar with. And that is scary. It's got to be a little daunting, but at the same time, I think it's so brilliant because at 65 or 67, however old he is now, here's this guy who's still showing us new colors, who's still doing things that he pulls out this rabbit that you don't see coming, and that to me it's amazing, and it's a testament to just how immensely talented he is.
A couple of non-comedians questions. You were on with David Letterman a couple of weeks ago. Probably one of the very last people making their debut with David Letterman, because these last 4 or 5 weeks are basically all of his favorites coming back for one last visit. Well, it seemed like you were just thrilled to be there.
I was thrilled to be there, and Letterman he's an institution at this point. Like Johnny Carson, I think that he has such a distinct voice, and he's the one late night talk show host who it's the inverse, where you welcome them all into your home. He's the one that you want desperately to welcome you into his home, if that makes sense. He's not the cuddly figure cut from the same cloth as some of those other guys, and that's what I love about him, is he says it as it is. He is, for better or for worse, he's critical, he's judgmental, he's not a people pleaser all the time, but he's true to himself. And that energy will be deeply missed, I think, on late night television. And one highlights of my still going on Letterman. You have to earn David's trust, I think, in many ways. And the moment that I realized I had, or maybe he just faked it really well, but the moment that I feel like I earned his trust, that was a great moment. It was an amazing moment for me, and something that I'll cherish forever.
No, I think you got it. I mean, he really doesn't fake it, and at this point, he really doesn't fake it. We've all seen people on with him, especially your ingenue model types, people that are the third person on a series. That he just sits back in the chair, and you can tell he doesn't even want to be there some nights.
Oh yeah. He wears it on his sleeve for sure, and I could tell when I sat down that he's like, "All right, show me what you got, kid," and I was relieved, to say the least, that I wasn't kicked out of the chair. It was an honor, and Dave, you will be missed.
Yeah, I don't think people realize that are under my age really that almost everybody today is copying some version of something he's done, much like he tried to copy, Johnny Carson and Steve Allen.
Exactly, but he made it his own. He really did, and maybe that's by virtue of coming from being a weatherman first and not having the traditional path toward, the late night show trajectory that a lot of people do. Even though he did do stand up, he had some other twists and turns that are unexpected in that journey. And I think I will forever remember a lot of his shows as being some of the funniest moments I've ever spent with a late night host.
Yeah, I'm thrilled he's actually showing clips these days, because he hasn't, he's one of those guys, he hasn't allowed like anniversary specials or clips to be out there really since he's been on CBS. He used to do it on NBC.
Yes.
So the fact that he's doing that is amazing to me.
Yeah, agreed.
Listen, Frozen, we just announced, not that we announced, Disney announced, Frozen 2 will be, I guess, in the pipeline for 2 or 3 years. So now those animated features take a long time, though. What's your excitement level to be coming back?
Oh man, I look, any opportunity to continue to be a part of this incredible legacy that I've stumbled into it's an honor, and it's one that none of us take lightly. And I think that with John Lasseter at the helm of Disney Animation Studios, and with Jennifer Lee and Chris Buck and Bobby and Kristen all coming up with some kernel of an idea that that bears creating a new story around and creating a sequel for, I think that is a very high threshold, that nobody would be doing it unless they were enormously confident that it will be just as special and just as unique and hopefully just as good, if not better, than the original. Although those are some big shoes to fill.
They really are, though. Now the biggest earning animated film of all time.
Yeah, it's crazy, and again, I've been blessed to have a couple of those where you sort of just stumble into it, whether it's Book of Mormon or Frozen, you don't see it coming, and then suddenly it's like a life changer.
And next time I go to Disney World, you'll be part of that new ride they're building?
Yes. As a matter of fact, I just recorded some dialogue for that ride. It's going to be lovely, and I think they're going to need to get the mops out, because kids are going to soil themselves when they see this. It's really it's quite something.
Yeah, back a few years ago, I worked at Epcot, so I can't wait to go back and see this. I believe you're back at the Norway ride area, right?
Yeah, I grew up in Florida, so I used to go to Epcot all the time.
We probably ran right across each other and didn't know it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And speaking of Disney, as we wrap up here, you were also just announced they're doing a live-action Beauty and the Beast, and
yes,
you're going to be in that.
Yes, I'm actually headed out to London, back to London next week. I was there for about a week and a half, and it's like summer camp right now, because it's the pre-production joy of singing and dancing, horseback riding, which surprisingly doesn't come naturally to me. And I'm thrilled. I mean, Beauty and the Beast is for me what Frozen is to a lot of today's kids. It's an indelible classic that I look fondly on and back at, and remember exactly where I was when I saw it for the first time, and just hearing those songs, Be Our Guest, and of course Gaston. That was such a thrill, and to see it all being fully realized is, it's incredible. I wish I could share more specifics, but I'm excited for people to see what they're dreaming up right now, because it's unbelievable.
That's Bill Condon, right?
Bill Condon.
He's a good friend of our website. He's been on with us many times over the years.
He's an extraordinary talent. He really is, and whether it's his theatrical work like the genius, short-lived but genius sideshow, or any of his movies, Gods and Monsters, Dreamgirls. He's enormous. He's brilliant, and at the core, this film is an emotional journey that happens to have spectacle all over it, and that emotional journey is, I think, right in his wheelhouse.
And I think he produced the best Oscars of the last 20 years. He was
I didn't know
Hugh Jackman.
I didn't know that he produced that. That's crazy.
Yeah, remember the year where they kept having like five previous Best Supporting Actors came out and talked about,
Oh
and
yes, that was incredible. I actually do remember that. That was
Hugh Jackman hosted that year.
That's right. Well, I'm available, guys. If
Well, see,
Condon
now
wants,
this is perfect. You and Billy Crystal come and host the Oscars. Bill Condon come back and produce.
there you go.
Great to
Done.
have you with us today. I can't wait to see those last four from this season. But I hope if anybody gave up on the first episode thinking, I don't know where this is going, trust me, this thing gets so funny and so actually emotional on a couple of episodes coming up.
Yeah, it does. And you know, to borrow sort of tonally from, I think, the gold standard right now of comedy on television, Louis, where we don't attempt to shortchange any of that dramatic weight as well. And sometimes it gets uncomfortably funny, and sometimes it gets uncomfortably uncomfortable. But we certainly try not to shy away from that. And I think, a la the birthday episode, we succeed more than we failed, hopefully. And I'm really excited. I think the show is definitely the most special show I've ever been a part of. And I'm very thrilled that people are starting to really seem to get it and are saying, wait, this is different. Because you being a part of it, you know, but you sort of have to let it play out and allow people to discover it. And I'm glad that they are, and I'm thrilled that you're such an advocate for us, so thank you.